We're live.
We're live. What is up, everybody? Thank you for being with us. Welcome to Fill in the Blank. You're watching the Non-Corporate Network, and it is now 8:23, so all of the people that had to go to their cubicle have now arrived at the office and are sitting there and cannot watch this. So if you're with us, you're probably in the gig economy, you're probably an entrepreneur, you're probably doing something exciting, and so we are stoked to have you with us. My name is Chaz Vandemotter,
Dustin Trout.
and we are your hosts. The way this show works, for those of you that haven't been with us before, is we have found six of the top stories in headlines in small business, in tech, and we are going to bring those to you. We're going to talk about the positives and the negatives in terms of each of these stories and dig a little bit deeper. We're only going to have 3 minutes per topic to discuss this. So we're making it quick hitting, and we're excited to talk about some of this stuff. We have a lot of great stories today. If you guys have questions, or you want to mention anything, or you want to throw some gas on the fire and back me up, then throw your comments into the stream, and we'll be able to see those and field those as well. So again, you're watching Fill in the Blank on the Non-Corporate Network. Let's get into it. What's our first story? Yes. How could I forget? The stimulus bill. If you are a small business owner, then you know that the White House just passed a $60 billion stimulus package that is set to help businesses to recover during the coronavirus. Obviously, there are a lot of things at play here. There's a lot of people on both sides of the fence in terms of how we're handling this. Dustin, what are your thoughts in terms of what decisions have been made, and how do you feel about this stimulus package?
Everything that's come to play or come to action, I've been for. I mean, people are staying in, but with this recent one, I think we're getting close to opening things back up and the economy getting back underway. And so I think just giving more money out. I mean, we've given out over, I think, $6 trillion so far between businesses and people. And I think
Right.
eventually it's just we're gonna hurt ourselves and go into a financial deep dive, which wouldn't be good. And so I think because we're so close to opening things back up, it's kind of let the economy get back underway without going further into debt.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to argue, and I said 60 billion. There's another 310 billion that they just put into that 60 billion, so it's now 370 billion relief. Obviously, people that are small businesses haven't had this money drop into their bank accounts yet. Obviously, we've seen a lot of these bigger businesses that are getting their million or $10 million. Like we talked about, like Ruth's Chris and Fogo de Chao, and like businesses like that are picking up, $15 million. The little guys. I know that I bank with Bank of America, and they closed the triple P kind of business loan applications within like 15 minutes. And so it's like it's weird to me because it feels like it's not as accessible to small businesses as it should be. It seems like initially I thought the headline meant that this was for small businesses, but I haven't heard of a single person that's actually received this money and knows what the heck is happening. So, and my other point here too is that the stimulus package is meant to increase the velocity of money and increase our GDP. And if people are getting this stimulus check and then not using that money and just holding on to it and trying to be resourceful, then that defeats the purpose of the stimulus in the whole. And at the beginning of the whole thing, it's all about how can we raise our GDP to debt ratio. And right now, we have more debt than GDP, and the stimulus isn't necessarily adding more money into the economy.
Exactly. I mean, to your point, it's the bigger businesses that are getting it, which I mean, they should be sitting on some cash. I mean,
Exactly.
they're financially responsible, they're building up a savings. Where maybe the small
Right.
mom and pop shops are the ones that are kind of not so much operating paycheck to paycheck, but in the day to day that could really use it, and they're the ones that aren't even getting it. And so, I think it's just like I said, we're so close to opening back up. Let's let the economy kind of crank up itself and just stop taking out more debt.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Next story, we're looking at a new app called Clubhouse. The headline says Clubhouse, the new club quarantine. Essentially, what Clubhouse is an attempt to create a social network using what Zoom and Google Hangouts have popularized over the last few months here, in terms of creating a network of open audio calls that are online, as well as almost a Twitter-esque platform where it's actual audio clips instead of typed out words. So I think it's an interesting play. Dustin, do you see yourself using this product at all?
No, not at all. I mean, I see what they're trying to do and innovate during current events. But I mean, there's so many other platforms that have something similar. I mean, the fact that it's only audio and no video, I mean, people are wanting to see people and connect. And so you can't do it through that. I mean, you can use Google Hangout, Zoom, and actually see each other. And even more so, if I hop into a conversation now, it's just going to be like, hey, what have you guys been talking about? There's no context around the conversation, so it's just going to be a lot of repeating yourself, and even more so, it's how are you going to monetize it? It's like Vine. I mean, they had their 6-second clips. They're trying to be innovative, but couldn't figure out how to make it sustainable. I think it's a clever, innovative idea during the current events, but I think there are other options that would make this go further, that are already being deployed across other platforms. But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love tech and I love, creating innovation. I think that this is a new spin on something. And so, I'm always for that compared to, just copying TikTok or whatever's hot, so I think that they've thought it out in that way. I think it's an interesting distribution strategy as well. They're not making this open to the public. They've only invited a handful of Silicon Valley tech companies to actually be able to kind of use this. And so they're almost kind of taking a similar strategy to how Facebook grew with Ivy League colleges. It's like, okay, only certain businesses in our sphere are going to have access to that, and it's going to kind of raise the allure of it. And so I think that that's a creative distribution strategy. But we've all been that person on the Google Hangouts call that just mutes their face and their audio, and it's like, I don't see how that's much different. I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of other tools out there, so it'll be interesting to see how they monetize this. I think that it's valuable for people that are doing podcasts, easy to get into the call and grab good audio. But I definitely agree with you. Coming up with how do you monetize this, I think is a huge consideration, and whether it's advertising or whether people are paying to use this tool, I think either way it's going to be a slippery slope.
Yeah, cool concept, but there's already a bunch out there, and I think it's just there's gonna be too many interruptions, and I don't think it's gonna last.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Our next story, we are looking at the battle of the bots. So there's a company called Cloudflare that is a securities company, and they actually are responsible for ridding 12% of the internet of bots, and they've partnered with Google. Pretty much, you guys have seen the thing where it's asks you if you're a robot. They're actually changing the process of how they go about identifying bots online. And I think it's kind of ironic that Google is on the forefront of that discussion. But, do you think that we need innovation in this place? Like, what are the risks of having these bots? And is it worth interrupting the browsing experience more to rid more bots of the internet?
Yeah, I mean, Google's obviously top of mind there. They're the ones that kind of created the foundation of the internet with Google search. And I'll say from an analytics perspective, it is annoying to see bot traffic. So I'm all for it. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had a conversation around why are we getting all this traffic from this weird city, and average session duration is 1 second, bounce rates are 99.9%. And as soon as you bring up, oh, it looks like bot traffic, it just sparks off a whole other conversation. What is it? Is it bad? I mean, so there's a lot of educating, and it just, with us being so data driven, it messes up and skews the data quite a bit. I mean, there are filters and stuff you can set up, but
Right.
it doesn't do anyone good. So I am all for it. The sooner that we can get rid of that. And on top of that, I mean, you're looking at click fraud whenever it comes to the paid advertising, bots clicking on your ad and costing you some money. So anything we can do to get rid of these robots, I think I'm all for them, 100% in.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on just Google running with it? Is there a better company, or what are your
Right.
ideas?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I think is, as I mentioned, it's kind of ironic. I mean, this is they've kind of made a transition where instead of doing this annoying thing where I have to tell you where the sidewalks are, now it's more like we're going to look at your cookies and use that to help us validate if you're a real user or not. But again, Google's going to prioritize the people that are logged into G Suite, that are using their platform. And so they're eliminating spam, but at the same time, they're prioritizing people that use Google. And I think that that's always going to be a slippery slope. I think that, at the end of the day as well, like, you can get rid of the bots and the people that are scalping the tickets and scalping the new drop of the Yeezys or whatever. There's other technologies out there like RPA, robotic process automation, that is going to pretty much make it virtually undetectable for there to be bot traffic. So, I mean, there's a lot of smart people out there going to continue to innovate. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is one small step in the right direction. But I got my own timer on my end. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But I think that in the end, innovation is going to win, and there's always going to be a new loophole that's going to be exposed.
Yep, I mean that'll continue forever. When you close one loop, another loop opens up, and so it
Amen.
creates
Amen.
jobs.
Yeah,
So
right.
with our next topic, Google, I mean, kind of following suit to Yelp, is now introducing ad credits for small businesses. They're introducing up to $340 million dollars to help small businesses run their Google Ads accounts. I think. I don't know if it's more of a headline or, I mean, going back to what we were talking about, it's not real cash. And so I think it's good though, because it creates opportunity for businesses to then get themselves out there and try digital marketing for those who might not have tried it. And so I think it's another way to spark revenue, help the economy get going. And so I'm all for it. What are your thoughts on another advertising company giving digital money
Yeah, I'll
away?
tell you, there's definitely a big difference. We're talking apples to oranges when you're talking about comparing Google's ad network to Yelp's ad network. I mean, I've used Yelp's ad network, and in 6 months, I didn't get a single click. No one's on there doing that. So I think that this is definitely more valuable than Yelp in terms of the credits. But I'm not convinced that there's not a million miles of red tape that follow this. It's like, oh, wow, great, a headline, 340 million credits going out. Sounds amazing. But I think it's going to have the same kind of effect as this whole stimulus thing, where it's like, okay, well, the advertisers that spend $1 million or more with us, you guys are going to get 75% of these credits. And then dangle $100 to the small business owners and go, here's a free $100 if you set your account up and put your credit card on file and name your firstborn after us. And then all of a sudden it's like the $100 for the small business owners spent trying to figure out how to use it, and all of a sudden it didn't benefit them at all. And so I think that, it's another classic situation of the small guy getting cut out a little bit. And, I know that you got to be strategic and they got to make money, but I know when you're sitting on a pile of billions of dollars, it seems trivial to try to put up a bunch of usage and paywalls around a small business that's just trying to spark some money and revenue, especially when they're using G Suite and paying for other Google products.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on all fronts. I mean, they're a company that's trying to figure it out, innovate, and bring some value. So it's I mean, kind of like what we were talking about right before this. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and so I mean, one can assume if I'm getting something free, there's going to be a cost, kind of like using Facebook and using Google. If I'm going to get that information at my fingertips, you're probably collecting my data or something. But I mean, at least they're exchanging value. So I mean, I think what it comes down to is I think it's going to get a lot of people, even if it is $100, $200, whatever it may be, it's going to get a lot of companies to actually try the Google Ad Network and maybe see some good results. And who knows, we might see an influx of digital marketing after this, which I'm a huge proponent of. And I think that it's just going to happen after this is all said and done. It's just more companies get digital.
Yeah, no, well said. And there's definitely no such thing as a free lunch. So I'm sure we'll
Accounting 101, that opportunity cost.
Yeah, you already know.
Yep. So our next
We got
one is Facebook pulls back on making it mandatory to run campaign budget optimization, and that's essentially where you just set up your campaigns, give it a budget, and Facebook allocates whatever they want to whatever audiences you set up. So kind of losing control of the what you can set up. But I'm for this because all they're trying to do is make the platform better. Their machine learning can see data in a lot bigger scope. They can just make the campaigns perform better, and that's ultimately what advertisers want. And so I don't know. I'm kind of against this because, again, it's just going to allow people some more freedom where they might make mistakes in their campaign setups, ultimately not generating as great results as just letting Facebook do its thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Stephen A. Smith and the Dallas Cowboys a little bit with this whole kind of like overarching headline around this. But Facebook is made it increasingly difficult to make them happy on the ad side. The prices have gone up. The restrictions have gotten bigger and bigger in terms of what headlines you can use, what creative you can use, how much text is in the image, like all the way A to Z. It's like they keep building these walls of stopping creativity and making everything more and more uniform. And I think that's where that special sauce is for a business to be able to stand out using this product. So, I think that you compare the things that they've done from a creative side and how they've kind of hindered creativity. I think it's the same side over here. It's like now, even though the CBO is going to allow for better optimizations, like I don't trust Facebook to be on my side. I trust them to be trying to make money. They're not tying the value of an ad to the dollar amount that's coming back to you. They have no obligation to make it a better ad or put it in a better place. Obviously they want to drive expansion, and if they can get people to spend more money, then that's great. So there's some incentive, but at the end of the day, again, the small business owners, they're not looking out for us. They're looking out for the bigger people that are spending millions and millions of dollars. So I don't necessarily think that this is going to help people. But I guess time will tell. I hope that Facebook has enough integrity to not just put this story out and mandate something like this if it wasn't going to help everyone.
Yep. No, and I hear you on the creativity and wanting more control. But at the end of the day, most businesses just want that ROI and that return on their investment. And so if I think you bring down production costs by not being as creative, and if Facebook's delivering the results, I think it's going to make people happier. And to your point, even though they can't show you the ROI, I mean, you could set things up to identify that. But at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is bring more success to these organizations, because if you're seeing the results, you're going to keep doing it whether you have creative control or not. At the end of the day, if they're driving some type of return and they can show that, you're going to spend more money with them. So it's them just trying to pad their revenue.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a necessity now to have Facebook advertising as a piece of your marketing strategy. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yep. Well, kind of piggybacking on another topic that we've discussed earlier this week is LinkedIn Ads is now beefed up their audience targeting and now allow for you to target based off of company growth, whether they're a Fortune 500 company. I mean, for example, let's see, you could target the world's most innovative companies, the Fortune 100 fastest growing companies. I mean, now you could target based off of if companies have seen growth by 2 to 5% in the last year, if they've seen a negative growth, so if they're a declining business, which, speaking of opportunity and being creative, it just gives you more controls over the messaging that you can do. And one thing that's interesting, something that they've had since 2008 is being able to target based off a company size, but they've done it based off of what you have in your profile, and most people don't update that. And so now they're using third-party data to validate, so it makes that company size targeting a little bit more accurate. And so, again, more data to target. We can be creative with the messaging. I am all for this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about adding layers and filters, and LinkedIn's done a really good job of making it more and more granular and using their data very wisely in terms of how they add value. I think that especially when you're in a professional setting like this, some of these different targeting metrics can really help. But I've got to say that it's expensive, man. And, we talked about the CPMs being upwards of 75, 80, $90. There's this amazing product called LinkedIn Sales Navigator that costs $70, and I can pay that one time for the same cost as advertising to 1,000 people. And I can go after and send a message to the 20 people that actually make sense for me to talk to. And I can find those specific people and the specific businesses that I care about. So I think that this is more of an enterprise play for them, because when you look at it from a small business perspective, if you're trying to blanket messaging across these big businesses and not targeting based off of the actual person specifically, then it's more of a branding exercise. And I think that that's a waste of money for the smaller guys compared to just having one-to-one communication. So, I'm looking at it going, I think that their ad console is becoming more robust and actually being comparable to the Facebooks and the Googles of the world. But with that being said, I think that their LinkedIn Sales Nav product is a much better play for businesses that have less than 100 employees.
Yep, I hear you, and I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to, we have all these targeting capabilities, which is great, but everyone is running the same message across the board, so why even segment? And I think what it's allowing people to do is have the ability to segment their audiences, but the true power comes into creating creative that speaks specifically to that audience. And so it just allows us more data points to shrink the audiences, but then it's up to the business to then come up with the creative that speaks to them, and not blanket messaging, which is more of that one-to-one communication. So good points.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You got to be very granular, especially when you're targeting B2B. It's less of a teeny bopper type of world where it's like you can have this fun messaging and more about what's the bottom line. And is this going to make me money? And tell me in 2 seconds what it is you do. And they also expect you to spend a lot more time on them in order to even start a conversation. So I think that, with all that being said, it can be a good exercise, but make sure that you have high ACVs if you're going to put money into this.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Sweet. Are we, do we still have time on that? Are we?
No.
Oh,
we
that one ran up.
We ding ding.
Okay, sweet. Well, thank you, Dustin, for entertaining my arguments, and I think that was solid. Some of these stories are crazy, man, and I mean, we were talking about before, like even Wednesday when we were on here, there's new developments in those stories and more layers. So tech is moving quick, business is moving quick, customer adoption happens in a heartbeat now, where it used to take years. So happy to be doing our own research. It's making us better. And for those of you out there watching, hopefully these are helpful to you and helping you to kind of understand where we're at in the world. Again, if you guys have questions, if there's topics that you found that you want to hear us debate about, send them in, please. Again, thank you for watching Fill in the Blank, non-corporate network. If you're in a cubicle, you're not allowed. Sorry. And again, my name's Chaz Vandemotter.
Dustin Trout.
Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you for listening to our arguments. Have an awesome rest of your day. Awesome weekend. We'll be back on Monday about 8:30. So tune in. We'll be bringing some more hard-hitting stories. And with that, peace out.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it, Chaz. Have a great weekend.